Hello everyone and welcome back to our Christmas special of 2022. Merry Christmas everyone.
Merry Christmas. Do you want me to sing?
No.
I think we'll just save that for another time.
Morning.
So as always, I am your host Vicky Hooker and I'm with Mark Copsey and Eddie Hooker. And today we are going to take a trip down memory lane and have a look at all the episodes and all the special guests we've had join us on Aesthetics Unlocked.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting
It's a great
stuff.
episode, great opportunity to look back down the year and see, hear everything that our experts and our guests have told us.
There were some great guests we had this year, wasn't there? When I think back, which I learnt quite a lot. Actually, and the whole point of Aesthetics Unlocked, isn't it, is to put expertise and people that have done great things in the industry and have made their careers and for people to listen about their stories.
Yeah, definitely. For us, it's a great opportunity to show. It's not just about insurance. You know, we're helping the practitioners. Yeah, we put their certificates and schedules in front of them, but this gives them a chance to really see what we're about, who we work with, education, knowledge, support on all levels. And I think we've had a great list of guests.
What was your standout moment, Mark, for Hamilton Fraser in 2022?
I think the January was great because it was that, it was the first time everyone felt that we were past the dreaded pandemic, and there was a sort of light at the end of the tunnel, and I think it really set the year up. And we're obviously going to listen to a little bit of what Shelly had to say. For me personally, I love the events. I love going to the events, and I still think 2 days at CCR was great. I love that event. Brings everyone together. You really have the chance to meet everybody in the sector, and it shows that Hamilton Fraser is really, really central to it. Not just, as I say, selling insurance. We're there talking to everybody, practitioners, clients, new and old, and partners as well. So I think the highlight for me, probably from a business point of view, was CCR, but I think all 12 months, the bounce back from the pandemic and the positive steps forward.
I think that was, for me, was watching the numbers of practitioners come back after the pandemic, because the industry took a bit of a hit, and there's no doubt and no denying that, but practitioner levels and the numbers of people we're insuring now has exceeded pre-pandemic
it's back up
times,
and
that's great for the industry, and it shows that the confidence of the industry is back. And
this year's shown that they've all come together. So whether you're a product, training, manufacturer, regulation, the whole industry has pulled together and really has come through what potentially could have been a difficult year, but it's been very positive. And it will go into 2023 bigger and better, I think.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser cosmetic podcast.
Back in January, the first guest we had was our very own Shelly Hemmings, who's our business, or your business development exec.
Shelly is, as we know, she's key to what we do in terms of working with partnerships and getting our message out there and going and seeing people. And this was a great way to set the year up and talk about, as I've just touched on, how we're going to look ahead for this year and her thoughts on what we were going to look to achieve.
Well, let's have a listen.
On the whole, training courses are lacking just general support as a starting point. So me going out there, being present within their training courses, seeing their delegates, their practitioners, and just being their first point of call. So whilst I'm there, from an insurance point of view, I will deliver a presentation telling them what they need to do, because let's face it, once those delegates have left that training course, what do they do? Where do they go? Where do they start? So that is basically going to be my reasoning for being there, is just to help them begin their aesthetics journey fundamentally. And I think it's needed.
There's a lot of talk, isn't there, at the moment about the quality of training courses.
Absolutely.
Mark, you and I, we wrote and helped the JCCP.
Yeah, absolutely. Back end
of
2021. Yeah, very important charter. I think the biggest thing I see is that 2021 was largely office and home based and reactive, and I think this year is where we turn that to being very outdoors, outbound, proactive, and where we visit people. Events are going to be back, as Vicky's already mentioned, and not just going to events, the big events every sort of 3 or 4 months. This is about getting in front of people all the time. This is on a weekly, monthly basis, and this is where Shelly's going to be out there very, very much in people's faces saying, this is who we are, this is what we need to do, and how we support you individually and as a sector. And I think it's really going to be a big year in terms of Hamilton Fraser and working with the sector and reinforcing.
What makes a good training course, Shelley? You see a lot of these, you meet a lot of training courses. What makes a good training course?
Well, most of the training courses have that element of, a good theoretical session, very visual. And from the training courses that I visited from the last half of 2021, the delegates seemed, quite engaged. And then usually the course is split into a practical session where the main person will, deliver the practicality of the treatment, and the delegates are then able to carry out their training. I don't think these types of treatments are something you can do in a couple of hours. Personally, I don't even think they're treatments you can do in a day. 2-day delivered quality theoretical practical training is something that I think is very, very basic for training courses to kind of put out there. And also, after the training is just important. These delegates need to have support of, not only us, but of their training courses as well. And I think a lot of the larger training courses are kind of adapting a bit of a support method for the delegates to reach back to them. If they are, having difficulty in corrective treatments or getting certain products, they need that additional support. And that's why I want to work with those training courses, again, to assist them where we can.
Yeah, and of course health and safety and the environment and where they're practicing
is absolutely vital, so important.
So you pop down, you have a look, you sit in those training courses.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like a review, isn't it? And ultimately you're telling them how to run their training course.
Yeah,
we want quality, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We want quality. In this industry and this day and age, let's face it, everybody, you've got all those people that want to look good and feel good. And, these practitioners, they've got that responsibility to deliver those treatments at the best quality that they can and in a safe way. Hopefully with me reinforcing, our message and supporting these training courses at the beginning of these practitioners' aesthetic journeys, hopefully we'll begin to, put our standpoint going forward.
I think something else to add, I would add, is that it also helps us understand the sector.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it separates us from just being an insurance provider. Mm-hmm. We are there to work with the sector, understand the treatments, understand the processes, and then we can evolve as a provider of services to the sector. And then that's why we have the stronger trust. That's why these training courses are happy to have us there, because they know that we bring something to the table and help their clients, and we help their the overall sector that everybody's so passionate about.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser cosmetic podcast. So in February, we had Natalie Dryden from Pabau join us for our paperless practitioner episode, and our listeners heard all about the clinic software within the industry. I know that there's a lot of options. It's not just Pabau, but what did you think about that episode?
I thought it was a great episode. You're absolutely right. There are lots of technology providers out there, and it's more and more key all the time. But we were very lucky to have Natalie. Pabau is a prominent name, and the things I found from that episode were, there were two angles. So one is, there are still, even in 2022, there are still practitioners who run their consent, consultation, and booking process on paper. Mm-hmm. And I don't get that. The work, it's very technology based, and there's two angles the way I look at it. One is that the way you manage your clinic in terms of the booking, the payments, the consent and consultation process, and then how that leads into managing claims. When claims happen and people are having to scan and send PDFs into us, the chance for gaps in terms of claims process is huge. Mm-hmm. So we, with various events we go to and talks that we do and education, we are encouraging people to move their practice into a technology-based process. And I think this episode with Natalie really showed the benefits of all of that in one.
I think traditionally it was called Pabau CRM. It is a client relation management system, as a CRM is, but it's much more than that. It's very much a place where you can run your whole business, particularly if you are new into the industry, setting up for the first time. There's so many like automations and things like that can help save you time. So it's a place, it's cloud-based. So you can access it from anywhere on the go, and there's some security features around that as well, which make it very safe, because there's one thing, being able to access your data everywhere, but then that's not always a good thing. So having things like two-factor authentication, having the ability to lock down IP addresses or devices, remote devices, also helps you stay in control of the data. And I know it's a huge topic with GDPR, and I think there's a lot of misconception around what you're supposed to do in that respect. And I just want to say, I love how you guys are just immersing yourself kind of in the industry, and I know Shelly's visiting the training academies, which is really great, because it's when we sort of collaborate and see what other people do in the industry, that's where you can actually connect some dots and say, actually, hang on, there's something that we can do that actually might help you there, or, here are all the features that we have on this system, that's really good for safety and helping to mitigate risk. So, thanks for having me once again.
You're welcome.
We already say, Eddie, that we learn off the industry. As Eddie said, we're not medical specialists. We learn off the industry. So what you do, what you tell us, what you help us, all the partners we work with, helps us evolve our processes and products. And that's why we work with so many strong partners around. And so it's a pleasure to have you here and learn a bit more detail.
You're there to hold their hands. I think that's the key, isn't it? It's not just download a piece of software from the internet and try and work out what the hell you're doing. That's the benefit you guys
Well,
give.
Pabau's mission, it says here, is to empower the clinics to go 100% paper free. And by sort of having the system that can take payments and capture photos and have all the medical templates and medical notes, it's not just a system, it's also keeping your clinic and your practice safe and secure in as much as you can, and helping you steer clear of potential claims that could come up that we see.
Yeah, it's literally any data point in the system we can pull into a report that can go into a spreadsheet that can then be given to, and it's not something the doctor needs to worry too much about, but it will be like the insurer or their accountant will ask them for this information. And then it's like, well, if they've been running their business on a cloud-based system, they'll just be able to go, here you go, here's that spreadsheet. And, we do have a team, the support is really important that you mentioned that point, because what I'd say is, out of all of our users, lots of them don't know how to use the full scope of the system,
Let alone turn on a computer. No, we love you all.
No, there are certainly some, I'd say old school,
more diplomatic
people who like to use pen and paper, but I think they started to adopt the sort of benefits of paperless. And once it's there, once you've been using the software for running your business, at any time you can get one of our support team to help you run that report. It's a quick, go on our live chat. There's somebody there, answer you in a few minutes.
People, so you've got a good support.
We've got the team there. They're there.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser cosmetic podcast.
Into March this year, we did a podcast on your birthday, Vicky.
We did record it.
We did. That was a special occasion for you. But we showcased Dr. Manrina Rhode's expertise in cosmetic dentistry. And we heard a little bit about her journey in her business and her views and her expectations and thoughts about the future.
Yeah, and I thought, a I think it really demonstrated again that we try and bring a variation to these podcasts. So we insure approximately 1,800 dentists, and we also work closely with the British Association of Cosmetic Dental Practitioners. So
Try saying that when you've
I
had
had to slow down when I said that to make sure. So I think it just shows the depth of what we do is not just about injectables and standard toxin type treatment. So I think this was a good opportunity to give a wider view on the dentistry world.
How much crossover is it now into the whole facial experience?
It's massive. So every single patient that comes to see me gets a full face treatment plan. So no one comes in and I say, oh, well, what in your teeth? And that's it. Like we take full face pictures, right. We look at facial symmetry, we talk about lip position, we talk about lip size, proportions, jawline, cheeks, all lines on the forehead, and the eyebrow position, and all the things that even me saying these words, you guys will know, oh, she's going to Botox that, she's going to fill that,
absolutely.
So everyone from me, I think I'm a little bit unusual in that respect, and I lecture about it quite often because a lot of practitioners may offer both, but they split them out. So they'll work in dentistry Monday to Thursday, and then on Friday they'll do their facial aesthetics.
Right.
They have their facial aesthetics day. And my argument is, why are you doing that? If you create a treatment plan and your patient wants to go ahead with it, then what I do is I then put the appointments in an order that works to have it all done. Like, obviously, I want to do their lip fillers after they've had their teeth done so that I'm not pulling, their newly shaped lips around. I want to do their gummy smile Botox before I do their gum lift so that I can see how much drop they've had before, and so the whole plan is created so that it all works together in harmony.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make, because again, coming back to the insurance element, that I'm of the opinion that if someone's doing facial aesthetics but they're also doing cosmetic dentistry, they should have their insurance all under one roof.
Absolutely.
I think Hamilton Fraser always comes up as the first insurance company to go to.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser Cosmetic Podcast. Lorna Bowes. I have to say, April's episode was one of my favourites this year. I really enjoyed having Lorna join us. Thank you so much.
What can you say? Lorna is one of our longest loyal customers. In fact, she was, I think, one of the first practitioners we ever insured back in 1996. Now, it shows how far Hamilton Fraser goes back in the industry, and a varied, glittering career in the aesthetics world. And it was a pleasure to have Lorna come and talk about her latest ventures and her latest views on the industry.
Absolutely. I think she's a friend of ours. I've seen Lorna many, many times this year. We always have great fun, but we learn from her as well. And she's a as you said, central figure in the aesthetics sector. Goes talks at many events, and I think valuable partner, valuable client, and certainly a friend of the business. And I agree with you, Vicky. I thought it was a great episode.
Let's have a listen.
It's being out there and being seen as the best partner for brands to work with. So that's really important. So when we go to conferences, it's not just about educating the audience and supporting our existing partners in terms of clinics, but it's also showing potential brands that we have our three pillars of authenticity, trust and passion, and that really follows through with everything that we do. So I get emails every day with brands. On the other side, I spend a lot of time researching the new cosmetic ingredients, making sure I understand the regulations, and when I do find a really good ingredient, I then go and look for who's manufacturing it and who are they selling it to, and which brands have got some really good technologies coming up. I go to the European Academy of Dermatology, the EADV, and the American Academy of Dermatology every year. It's a great place to go shopping. I try and go as a nurse and go to the lectures and hear what's coming, hear what's new. Sometimes they're brands that have already got distributors in the UK, so that's fine, leave those alone. Sometimes they haven't got a home, so I'll go and pitch for that. Once I've found a brand, so let's take, for example, Skin Better Science. We've been working with them for 3.5 years now, but in the 2 years before we started working with them, we had a very strong relationship with them, and we had our KOLs trialing the products and supporting my learning and knowledge to make sure that when I believe that an ingredient is novel, so for example, they've got something called Alpharet, which is a conjugated molecule of an AHA and a retinoid. It's genius. It's new. Nobody else has got it. It's specific to Skin Better. And so I went hunting for Skin Better and fought hard for that business. And it's now, it's an extraordinary brand. I mean, its growth in the UK in the last 18 months has been profound. We're in their top 3 in terms of growth and in top 3 in terms of sales globally. And there are no other distributors around the world who are in both. So we're hoping to be their number 1 next year in terms of volume sales, second to the US. And it's because it's such a very effective range of products. And Alpharet is just one of their amazing ingredients.
But it's showing your passion that it's not just about the treatment, it's not just about it's your passion for what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love it when people come and say, look, we trust you at AestheticSource and we just want to take every brand you've got. We've had people come and say, yeah, okay, you don't tell me the science. If Lorna's chosen it, we want it in our clinic. And that makes me feel very, very proud. But it also drives me to be 100% certain that anything that we take on has to have a point of difference clinically, but also has to have a point of difference commercially. So the curated range is what I would put together if I was setting up the Bowes clinics again. Which products that are available in the market now would I put together? So each one has got a specific market position. So for example, Neostrata is our most cost-effective range, widely available, but you cut me in half and I bleed Neostrata. It's just the most amazing range. The ingredients speak for themselves. You know, we have clinics who've worked with us since the day we started at AestheticSource, and they won't move to any other brand because they just know how brilliant the results are, that their patients are satisfied. Then we've got Revision, which is also available on the internet, but it's a very high price point, and that price point is very carefully managed to brand values, so we know that the people that work with Revision understand why it's that price, because they understand the value proposition that is, that they've got great packaging, great support, ingredients that work, and patients that are going to come back time and time again.
Do you choose the pricing, or is that driven by the manufacturer?
It's a mixture of both. Obviously there are laws about what we can do in terms of pricing, and you get, particularly with brands on the internet, there'll be pricing pressures with parallel import, which happens with pretty much every industry you've got at the moment. So we try very hard to make sure that the price point is sweet for the patient and that they're prepared to spend that amount. But there's that section of the pricing which you have to make sure that the clinics are getting sufficient margin as well, because you want them to be able to market the products and see the benefit commercially as well as clinically.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser cosmetic podcast.
If we're talking favourites, for me, I think as a business, one of my favourites as somebody who's business focused was having Natalie Haswell in May this year to talk about that, the reality of going from NHS nurse to not just an injectable practitioner, but a businesswoman in this industry. And at many events, people have come up to us and said that they love this episode, and it shows that it can be done. And I think that's what she demonstrated throughout. And I followed up. I went to Natalie's clinic, and she's got a great setup. And it just shows what you can do if you set your mind to it.
I also think it naturally showcases women in the sector as well, and I think that came across very clear in the podcast. Women are hugely important in the aesthetic sector. They're by far the largest demographic. And I just love listening to people that are, having been a businessman myself, setting up a business all those years ago, and it resonated with me, the struggles and what business people have to go through in order to reach the pinnacle.
I remember speaking to her. She's very, she's very, very passionate, empathetic as nurses are. But the thing that came through was that she had, that hint of entrepreneurialism in her, where she wanted to run a business. And I think you need that.
Absolutely. You can be the best practitioner, but the most successful practices are where you're pushing yourself to do things which and put yourself in situations which make you uncomfortable, but actually that's how you get your customers in.
Absolutely.
And that naturalism as well.
So we talk to, we probably do 200-ish new quotes a month from people who are entering the market. And they're coming in, I've just done my training, we ask them their turnover, and they're I don't know. And 5 years on, it just shows you what you can do if you listen to the right people, make the right amount of commitment and effort. And I think it was a fantastic episode, and that showed what you are capable of if you put your mind to it. Did you feel that you had like an entrepreneurial edge that wasn't being utilised where you were? Hence why you wanted to dip your toe into aesthetics?
You know what? You're completely right. And I didn't know it at the time. I'm one of those people that people tend to recognise things in me before I do. And then I go, oh, yeah. But my brother had mentioned to me, he was like, you work really hard. He's like, you're really, really dedicated. You're really motivated. You always want to give 100%, like it's you or your own relative that you're looking after, which I think should be in every nurse. And if not, perhaps they're in the wrong profession. He's like, but if you worked for yourself, he was like, it would be amazing. He's like, and I sat there and I thought, do you know what? I'll give it a try. But yeah, I did. I felt like I had something in me. My dad had always worked for himself. My mum had worked in as a nurse, but also had a hair salon in the midst of all of that years ago. So yeah, I think it was something that I needed to explore, and I'm so glad I did, to be honest.
What were the top 2 or 3 major difficult things that you had to get your head round when you took that step? What was worrying you? What were the major things that were worrying you?
So the first one, which I didn't think would bother me, because people have their opinions, they're entitled to them, not everyone agrees with everything, and I'm a big believer in if it makes someone happy, it's none of my business. But I was quite conscious of the fact that when I spoke to some of my colleagues, doctors, dentists, nurses, they were like, aesthetics, really? They were like, well, it's like, it's beauty. I was like, well, some of it is cosmetic, but obviously they are prescription medicines, and, they do require, in my opinion, a medical consultation assessment for ultimate patient safety. And so that was one of the biggest ones. So it was what my colleagues would think. And I kept it quiet for quite a while. I was doing it on the side, but I worked in a different area to where I was living. So I tried to keep it very separate because I didn't want an overlap and a conflict of interest.
Do you think that there was a stigma within your colleagues at the time that they would think slightly less of you because you embarked on that aesthetics career?
Yeah, 100%. I did. I really did.
That's
and there was a couple of comments, not nasty comments, not vindictive, just like, oh, really? Like, almost like they were actually quite surprised. I thought you loved your job. I was like, I do love my job, but I want to have something that's mine. I want to do something a bit different. I want to make people feel better in a different way. And I think the biggest trigger for it was when you go into the NHS, obviously people are ill. And to a certain extent, education was always something I loved. I loved teaching right from when I qualified. They were like, you've got a student, but you've just qualified. Is that all right? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. I don't know what I can teach them, but hopefully I can teach them something, or they can teach me. They might teach me something. It's a win-win, isn't it? But what frustrated me was the amount of support I felt like sometimes we were giving, or not able to always give, and the lack of motivation from some patients, which, comes with long-term conditions, illness, diabetes, cardiac conditions, depression. And I just got to a point where I felt like I was really putting in a lot of effort with a lot of patients, and they just weren't really that bothered. And I found it really frustrating, because I thought if we work together, you could be in like real optimum health. You could be a really managed, like controlled diabetic. We could reduce your hospital admissions. And that was part of one of my roles as practice matron. And I loved it. And I worked with an amazing team. But then when I started delving into aesthetics, people had come in and they were well, and they were looking after themselves, and they wanted to improve themselves even more. And it was just really quite refreshing. Rather than being quite draining. They knew what they wanted. They were motivated and determined to do it. And don't get me wrong, obviously that depends on where you live, your upbringing, how much money you earn, what lifestyle you have. And there are some overlaps, but there is quite a difference between some of your NHS patients and some of your private aesthetic patients. But it was nice to be able to help people that wanted to help themselves more.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser cosmetic podcast. This year we were also joined by Gareth Lewis from the BACN about the benefits of being a member in the associations and how important the role is that they play.
Gareth is another friend of the business. Everybody loves Gareth. BACN are a very, very popular.
Well, they're the largest association for cosmetic nurses, aren't they?
Cosmetic nurses, yeah. So they're a partner of ours. We love working with them, and I think if you look at the wider sector, we are very fortunate to work with a number of associations. So we work with the bars, we work with BACN. So I think the strength and support that an association brings to their members, who, as we touched on earlier, they're very, very good medical professionals, but there are areas where they need support, and I think these associations bring that to them in a number of areas. BACN hosted their own conference, which was an absolute success. And I think they're a true friend of ours. So it was a pleasure to have Gareth on to talk about the benefits of that particular association and what they do.
I suppose if I'm not going on just like the actual benefits on a bullet point list, I would say that the main reason people should join the BACN, and nurses particularly, is because often when nurses are leaving the NHS or thinking about moving away from the NHS, and this is a conversation I've had many times with many nurses, is that they often feel isolated. They either work independently or they work in a clinic with doctors, and they miss that nurse colleague support. And that's really what we're about. It's trying to prevent isolation, ensure that they're up to date with everything that they need to be, so that they can be the best aesthetic nurse. So that's why I would say to join the BACN. I mean, there are obviously lots of benefits that we have. We provide lots of guidance and support through our online forums. We have a huge regional network of nurses in certain areas, which all our members have access to. With that, they can join our regional groups. So we offer meetings twice a year for them to attend. They all come with CPD points. We have a national conference that they can all attend as well. They all come with CPD points. A lot of networking opportunities in that.
I think that's a great point. I've probably missed that over the years, actually, that it's a community. It's that community feel.
That's exactly what it is.
Well, Shelly and I, we've gone to a few of the BACN regionals, and they've been, like you said, like a little community. It's a nice little group. That everyone is there for the same reasons, and it's been really lovely.
Because I know, setting up my own business all those years ago, it's a lonely experience when I came out of a large corporate insurance company when we set up Hamilton Fraser, and suddenly all of that knowledge and support network goes and you're on your own. And we run ABC, as you know, and we'll talk a bit about that later, Aesthetic Business Conference, purely to try and help people get the business part of it. But I never really jarred with me that actually a nurse going out on her own or his own, it can be a very lonely... Because you're making mistakes or you're not making mistakes, and you've got no one to bounce off.
Especially, some of our members have been in the NHS 10, 20, even 30 years, and it can be quite terrifying to leave that family of nurses and to want to work by yourself. It can be scary, and that's really where we step in. It's just making sure they're not by themselves, making sure if they have any questions, any queries about anything, you would be surprised the range of questions that we get asked. And I think sometimes people are surprised by the amount of regional support there is, because I think maybe people will think that they're on them a competition down the road, but actually the general consensus is that if the nurse down the road is doing well, then it just makes it better for all nurses. So I think they all want to uplift each other.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser cosmetic podcast. In
September, we just to show that we like to innovate, we decided we would video one of our podcasts. I think they're called vodcasts, aren't they? Well, there we go. I've learned something there. So traditionally, we've always done these from an audio perspective, but we'd had so many emails and letters and requests to see what you look like, Mark, and what I look like, and Vicky, that we thought we'd show
people what they want.
Well, actually, we thought we'd show the audience. Actually, you don't need these treatments to look as good as we are.
Ever optimistic.
And also in that episode, we had Shannon Kilgariff with us and talking about events. And that same month, towards the end of September, we also showcased our very own Aesthetics Business Conference at the Royal College of Physicians in Regent's Park, which is an annual event that you put on, Vicky, and I think it shows the power of events. Shannon gave us a half an hour of her time to talk about what goes on behind these events and why events in the aesthetics industry are so important, not just from a treatment perspective and a new product perspective, but also about the networking and educational bit. So
and it just really shows that, again, that this sector is not just about about the treatments itself.
No, it's about everything.
It's about everything.
But let's have a watch. We can say that on this one.
A watch and a listen, absolutely.
A watch and a listen.
There's not just one reason you go to these events, and it's very much dependent on you as a practitioner, I think. So, one of the first things is to, you're working in isolation, a lot of you. You need to make sure that you're staying on top of industry developments, what's going on, what's new, what's out there, what techniques your peers are talking about or utilising. And that's going to benefit you and your practice. And no matter how long you've been working in the industry for, whether it's 2 years or 25 years, there's always something that you don't know.
Yes, I agree with that.
So the content, of course, is absolutely crucial. There are so many fantastic practitioners and business minds out there, and bringing them together at these events is absolutely amazing. You can go to these events and you can just absorb so much information. And whilst you're there, you can speak to all of the companies in the industry, essentially, at an exhibition. You can kind of go in there and spend 2 days. And spend it's one place. And, in terms of, I know these, practitioners are busy. They're treating patients day after day, hour after hour. Then they're, going home and looking over accounts and trying to run their business side of things. So in terms of time saving, to be able to go to an event and be able to kind of look at, okay, here's the top 5 laser companies all at once, show me your laser, or, what products are out there, it's quite convenient.
Agreed.
I think the other thing is that a lot of people kind of forget about is the networking opportunities at these events. I think we all realise that, during COVID, being in isolation sucks. It really does. It's awful. And, we can pick up the phone and we can do an Instagram live and that's all well and good. But, and you can do a Zoom. But you know what? It's just not the same as seeing someone face to face. You build a connection with someone when you're in their presence, I think. And, just being able to have a network in this industry is actually so crucial. A lot of the things that I do in my role is just building networks. And, I can do my job so much easier when I have a strong network of people to work with and bringing people together.
You're listening to Aesthetics Unlocked, the Hamilton Fraser cosmetic podcast.
So that was 2022's all-star cast of Aesthetics Unlocked, and it was a great year. Thoroughly enjoyed meeting and talking to all of these individuals. And do you know what makes me the most proud is that looking back over our glittering career in aesthetics from 1996, that I'd like to think that we are as relevant to the industry as we were back in 1996. And of course, the number of practitioners that we now insure has grown dramatically, and we've helped educate and we've helped evolve the sector. But I think what's really great also, Mark, with you taking on the helm is that we haven't stopped. We haven't. We always look to innovate. We always look to move forward. So we've had a few innovations for ourselves over the last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing to say, Ed, is that there's a huge amount of appreciation for you still in this business. In this sector, I'm fortunate enough to be able to take the baton on and get amongst the sector. But there's still a huge amount of you are Hamilton Fraser Cosmetic, and I'm just pushing that forward. And if we look at, we go out there now, I'm very full. I meet so many people week after week after week. And I think the thing that shines through is that you're absolutely right about being relevant. People are coming up to us now and asking us if they can be on our podcast. They're asking us if they can partner with us because they know that we bring wider education to the sector. And that shows that we are doing the right things and saying the right things.
We're not just insurance, as you said earlier.
Insurance. We are, that's what we're there for, practitioners, because we're there to protect the practitioners in the event that something goes wrong. But people see us as really, really important in terms of helping them get their message out there. And that message is not just about treating.
Yeah.
Talk about us, of course. I think 2023 is looking big. We've launched our new website this year. The Hamilton Fraser brand is now purely for the cosmetic division. As the business evolves. We've got our quote and buy system, which has been fantastic
That's been
launch.
An absolute success, hasn't it? I mean, we are now insuring practitioners 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the number of successful quotes or quotes to new policies has risen dramatically.
Yeah. We know practitioners they're in clinic. They're treating from 9 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the evening. So technology is moving in the right way. And I think that'll play a bigger part in 2023.
What do you foresee for 2023 quickly?
I don't foresee too much changing, if I'm being honest. We see, if we look at inquiry numbers in August, September, October, were 20% up.
Yeah.
Which
shows that the industry's growing, doesn't it?
It shows it's growing, absolutely. So there is still a demand. I think we all know that, I use the word vanity in inverted commas because I think it's a good thing. It's still central to what the UK does. And so I think there is a demand for aesthetics, for beauty related, and looking after yourself. I think it's good. Health and well-being is only going to get more important in this sector.
Absolutely. And I think also, just a quick mention, because we could do a whole podcast on it, I think regulation's going to increase into 23. I mean, we're involved in the JCCP. What a great organisation that is. And they're pushing forward with standards and protocols and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we are heavily involved in the JCCP. But I do think regulation is coming down the line, whether it will be in 2023 or 2024. But there are some changes which already are starting to come through, and I think if anything, I think practitioners need to get up to speed with what the future holds and become prepared.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that will be central to everything, and we've actually got a regulation podcast earmarked for about March or April. And I think we're going to do it as a super edition because we're going to have David Sines, and also Dawn Knight's going to be with us as well. And it's not just licensing is absolutely key, as we know, but we're now talking about, they want to talk about advertising standards, they want to talk about medical tourism. There is a wider picture for regulation, and we're very lucky to be able to be part of that, working with the JCCP.
And who else
the wider
have we?
Picture. Give
us a little bit of a flavour for some other of our guests coming up.
We're going to come at it from a few different angles as well. So we're going to have David Hyam from Cyton with us. Cyton are a laser manufacturer. And it's just, come on and give us an idea, or give practitioners an idea of how they can evolve their business beyond just injectables to incorporate laser within their business. We're going to have Dr. Priyanka Chadha, who with us, who obviously she spoke at ABC. So we're going to talk about some of the core principles, and if we want to know what's going to happen in the next 12 months with the injectable world, what better person to have on to talk about that. We're going to talk media again as well. So we know consulting rooms are going into their new evolved world, and we're working very closely with them. And Dan Huxley, who's the MD there, is a great guy, and he's sort of taken that on. And he's got some interesting thoughts about how you turn, media's going back to paper and it's going back to magazines, because email marketing is proven to be, or believed to be, proven a bit of an irritant to some people. So is there a call for media? And we wanted, as a strong partner of bars and hair restoration surgery, just educate, that's very specialist, but we want to give them a chance to tell the sector what they're doing as well. So the next 4 or 5 months, we've got some good guests coming in. And then we'll look beyond that. And of course, as always, we invite people. If you want to be part of the podcast or the podcast, and you want to work with us, then drop us a line. Then drop us a line. Absolutely.
I'd also want to say thank you to our listeners. The number of people that have been listening to these podcasts has been steadily increasing. In fact, this has been a record year. Send the link round to everybody. I think we are a bit more light-hearted than a lot of other video and podcasts in the industry. That's what Hamilton Fraser is about. I think you said it earlier, Mark. It's not just about talking about treatments and products. It's about the whole range of experiences within the cosmetic sector. And thank you, Mark. Thank you, Vicky, for hosting these. And I'm really, really looking forward to 2023 and maybe taking Aesthetics Unlocked to the next level.
Yeah. And I just want to say as well, thank you to the listeners for sticking with us this year as we reintroduce people back into the podcast, not just virtually but physically, during the rebrand of the Aesthetics Unlocked, and obviously making it into a podcast. So you guys have been here for us this year, so thank you so much.
And it's Christmas.
It is Christmas.
Yay!
And now can you sing, Mark?
I'll probably leave that to you guys, I think.
Anyway, have a happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
And a happy great new year, and see you in January.
See you in 2023.
See you later.